sometimes. Oh, don't you know sometimes that's how I roll. That's how I roll. Oh no, look in the mirror, it's a stranger looking back at me. Room on the Titanic.
Good morning, everybody. We still have a few people waiting to log in as attendees. My name is Matt Kolberg. This is the SolidCAD What's New for Infrastructure webinar. We'll just give a few more people a few more minutes to log in. So bear with us, and we'll begin just in a few. Thank you.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Can you guys hear me too?
I can hear you.
Hey, Thanks, Matt.
Stop the video.
Okay.
And we'll give you presenter status. Yeah, you already took it. Perfect.
All right, awesome.
All right, everybody, we might as well get started. That was Prem talking just now. So welcome to the What's New for 2021. Now, in the invitation, it's indicated Civil 3D and InfraWorks, pardon me. But you know what? Since Civil 3D is built on top of AutoCAD, we thought, well, we might as well throw AutoCAD stuff in here as well. And so that's what we're going to do. Prem's going to go first. He's going to talk about what's new for AutoCAD 2021, including 2021.1 if there's anything in particular that happens to be there.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you everyone joining us for this presentation on what's new in the Autodesk infrastructure world, mainly AutoCAD, Civil 3D, and InfraWorks. As we all grew up with AutoCAD platform, of course, Autodesk has done few enhancements with the AutoCAD side of things. So I will be focusing mainly on the AutoCAD part. And the first thing, obviously, when every release comes under the game, we all look at the file format. Is there any change? What happened with the file formats?
Can I interrupt just for a second, Prem?
Okay.
If anybody has any
Sure.
questions, everybody's on mute because there's too many people to allow to talk. So if you have a question, please open up the Q&A panel and ask your question there, and one of us will endeavor to answer it. That's it.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for reminding that. And yeah, the agenda today, the way we're going to do the seminar, both Matt and I will be doing the seminar, and of course the chat window will be available. We have a call in myself and maybe a couple of others joining later to check with the chat window and keep your questions in the chat window. Thank you. So back to AutoCAD, the format change, something we always often look at it and see if there is going to be impact into the industry in our drawing file formats when we save, export things. The good news is there is no change for the AutoCAD 2021 based release. It's keeping the same format as 2018. And you might notice from the previous releases in Autodesk now tending to keep the file format consistent for a longer period of time, not just 3 years or 2 years cycle. So that's a good one. Another item to talk about when it comes to the AutoCAD modify or edit commands, the trim is one of the most popular one, I would say. And we could see quite a bit of changes or enhancements they have done with the trim command for the past few years. Different ways of selections they introduced. Selecting the cutting edges or cutting boundaries was one of the things they made some good enhancements in the past couple of releases. You really don't have to select anything. You can hit an enter key to select everything as your cutting edge. Now, you don't even have to do that extra enter key. While launching the command, it identifies the available objects on the screen as cutting edges by itself. Okay, I'm going to show that later in a little bit of demo in AutoCAD drawing. Then if you look at another major command getting popular in AutoCAD is the revision and the behavior of the revision cloud. We're going to take a look at that too. And another major change or enhancement, I would say. They introduced a nice drawing history for the files or the drawings or designs we are keeping in a cloud environment, right? Which is could be a OneDrive, Dropbox or similar environment. When you load the drawings from that locations, it's tracking the history and changes. Could be same person operating the drawing and making modifications, or team members working on the same drawing. Doesn't matter. It tracks the changes, and it also allows us to do a drawing comparison in that interface too.
Hey, Prem,
Yep.
are you sharing just your drawing, or do you have a PowerPoint going too? Because all I can see is a drawing.
Oh, the PowerPoint.
I can only see
Sorry.
your drawing.
Oops. How about now?
Nothing
Still?
yet.
Okay, let me stop the sharing and redo the share again. One more second. Just how about now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So go back to a couple of slides. Those are the slides I was talking about, the trim command, the revision clouds, and the drawing history. That's the new to the collection. And as I mentioned, it allows us to track the changes or the versions, history from a drawing loaded from cloud locations, could be OneDrive, Dropbox, etc. Okay, so let me switch to my drawing here and going to show some of those features. Okay. All right. Let me know, Matt, if you can see my drawing or still having the issue.
We're good.
Good? Okay, excellent. So I'm going to take you through a few changes mainly with some of the commands. We all familiar with the AutoCAD break commands, for example. For many years that was around. Then Autodesk introduced a break at point command. Well, but there was a problem with the command. When you launch the command and use it, good for one time. Then if you accidentally hit the enter key, it will repeat the old break command, not the break at point command. So now to get around with that problem, that issue, they came up with a new break at point command. So that's available through the command line, or you could have a button or break at point command added to your interface. Okay. So this particular command is new. When you select the object, it's going to prompt you, and you can break any point. So that's broken into two pieces now, two line segments. I could repeat the command by simply hitting the enter key, right? So it's going to continue. So that's was one of those commands, we were wishing that the enter key would repeat it again and again. Okay, so that's taken care of right now. So I have now three separate line segments. Let me throw that into, say, a different layer, hidden layer, and you can see it's showing the property of that layer. The trim and extend command, as I mentioned, the trim command, they made good changes with the trim command. Soon as you launch the command, the trim, okay, I'm ready to do the trim action, okay? I don't have to hit the enter key or worry about selecting the cutting edges. I could simply go and start, trimming the object. So that is the new change we could see with the trim command. Okay. Well, the extend command, no much changes. It is exactly the same way like we had in the previous releases. Okay. So trim and the extend command, especially trim, has some good enhancements when it comes to the selections. Revision cloud, this particular command you'll find under the draw collection. We have different flavors of the command: rectangular, polygonal, freehand. So let's say if I want to go for a polygonal option, I'm going to snap to few objects available. Let's make a revision cloud here. Another popular way we create the revision cloud, selecting an existing object and then converting it into a revision cloud. And let's take a look at what are some of the enhancements. We're going to select the object. When we launch the AutoCAD properties window, you will find the new arc length option, and also at the very top, the revision cloud is, or Rev cloud is the new object type. Okay. So you could change the arc length and get the updates instantly. Another feature, when we have, let's say if I need more controls or different types of grips, these are the default grips going on with the revision cloud. And system variable controlling all these properties and the grips. So let's take a look at the Rev Cloud grips option. There's an on and off option. So the on option is the one with the traditional Rev Cloud object grip. When turn it off and select the object, it's more like the polyline grips. For every arc, you're going to see endpoints and the midpoint. Okay. The off and on situations. And the on situation, it's going to be specific to the new type of entity, the grips, the Rev Cloud grips. In other words, one segment, the original segment, it is treated as one set of objects, one object, not for each arcs. So you're going to find also some additional system variables. For example, there's one called Rev Cloud Variants. This one, when you turn it on, more gives a hand-drawn appearance for the object, compared to the computer one. So there are additional system variables, and you will also find some enhancements in a couple of other commands. For example, DWG compare is one of those good commands Autodesk introduced a few releases back. They made some enhancements, and in 2021 we could compare not only drawings, external reference to XREF files. So if you have an AutoCAD XREF or multiple external references loaded to the base drawing, and you need to track the changes between the latest version and what you have in the drawing, you could use the XREF compare option, or DWG, similar to the DWG compare. And then always, Autodesk improve the performance and other graphic appearance in a better way with every release to support more and more pixels and better graphics card. You can have those by default anyways. And also there are some security enhancements also they do with every release of AutoCAD, mainly with the DWG, legacy DWG drawings and the drawings coming from other platforms going to check and verify. Okay. And that is in a nutshell for the new items specific to plain AutoCAD update. And any questions, guys, or else I will give it back to Matt.
No questions have popped up yet, so thank you.
Okay, I will stop sharing.
All right, I will start. Give me 1 second. Share. All right. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Good.
Good. Okay. All right. So I'm going to cover InfraWorks and Civil 3D. Thanks, Prem. Has some good information about AutoCAD. All right. So the format change. Well, nothing's different than it has been for the past, well, since InfraWorks pretty much came out. Every version of InfraWorks is its own format. So if you have InfraWorks 2018, you will not be working with an InfraWorks 2019 model. There's so many changes in InfraWorks to deal with performance and features not even just every major release, but every incremental release like 2020.1, 2020.2, lots of stuff that's changed. And so like previous versions, the format has changed. So there is no backwards compatibility, at least not yet, with InfraWorks models. Excuse me. So new features. We've been able to bring in Civil 3D corridors into an InfraWorks model for a few years now. Now, the way they came in prior to 2021 was they came in as coverages. And so there's really not much to demo here, so I'll just stay on this slide. But you had the ability to map your Civil 3D materials to an InfraWorks material. So for example, if you had an area of asphalt or grass or sand, you would map that before, and the InfraWorks coverages that got created use those materials. This year, it's actually very similar, but instead of mapping to coverages, it's actually mapping to pieces of a component road. So long story short, when you import a Civil 3D corridor into InfraWorks now, there are no more coverages. You actually get a component road. Now I'll just demo this real quick. Right, just before I head into the model, the interface has changed a little bit as well, right? This is the home screen now. It's a very different home screen than you probably remember, right? And the reason they did this really was to make it a little more consistent with the other Autodesk products. Right? On the left, we have a recents, open, new from Model Builder, and then we have a BIM 360 tab here as well. So the InfraWorks interface is a little bit different on the home screen. So here's my model. This guy right here, this road that you see, including the bridge, that came from.
Sorry, Matt.
Yeah.
We are not seeing the screen, just the PowerPoint.
That's right. Thanks.
While Matt is loading that screen, let me add on to that specific feature. Matt was talking about the InfraWorks is now able to utilize Civil 3D materials, not just the coverage. We have a couple of clients over here dealing with, for say, landscape design. They go back and forth between Civil 3D and InfraWorks. The reason being, Civil 3D, they want to go for detailed grading and, complex grading. So they do that and then push it back to InfraWorks. And it was a challenge for some of the designers to to not being utilizing some of the the materials coming from Civil 3D. And now with this new feature on the InfraWorks, that's just an add-on benefit for those users dealing with the data sharing. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Prem.
Yeah.
Yes, so this InfraWorks road that you see is in fact a component road. Right? When I select it, you get all of the component road stuff that you're used to. It's no longer coverages. But this component road is now dynamically linked with the corridor that comes in. Now, of course, the corridor never contained that bridge. The corridor was just, the corridor happened to go over the water, and maybe there was a different assembly for that region. So what I did in InfraWorks is I want a bridge here. So because it came in as a component road, I can just add the bridge. Now, if I go back into Civil 3D and make a change, come back here in InfraWorks and essentially reload it, sort of like an XREF, but different, of course, this bridge will update itself. So if the road ends up going higher, the bridge, piers, and everything else will update. So it's a dynamic relationship between your Civil 3D corridor and the InfraWorks component road, which is very nice. All right. A lot of what's new with InfraWorks lately, like the last couple of releases, I've actually dealt a lot with bridges. Now, I'm not a bridge guy, and I can't really speak overly intelligently about bridges. But when I select the bridge, I select it again, and now I'm able to select the different pieces of the bridge, like the pier, for example. All right, now with the pier selected, I'm just going to show you something that's reasonably new and sort of cool. This is the selection of whatever kind of pier you want, essentially. The software comes with these piers. But if you are an Inventor user, you can install Inventor and install the InfraWorks Inventor plugin to allow you to create any of this parametric geometry yourself. So with InfraWorks and the Inventor plugin, you can do almost anything you want with this software. You do the right thing in Inventor and save it in such a way that it's compatible with InfraWorks. You can create your own content, not just limited to piers, but lots of other bridge components. Again, I'm not a bridge guy, but it's a pretty interesting feature, I think. Speaking of the bridge, in past, the bridge deck didn't really accept the Civil 3D super elevation, but now it does. It's going to be hard for me to show this exactly. You can definitely see when I zoom in, the road is super elevated. You can see that the cross section definitely shows that it's super elevated. And when I zoom in, it's there as well. Now, what you can't see is the bridge deck itself is actually super elevated, right? When I turn off the road, I don't have the option to show you a cross section like this. So you'll have to understand that the bridge deck itself is super elevated. So the structure underneath the road is doing what it's supposed to do. And again, any change you make to Civil 3D, you just re-import that into here, and the bridge deck fixes itself. The piers will fix themselves. Everything fixes themselves. It's the dynamic relationship. Now, I wonder if you've noticed this. I've got a double yellow line, and no longer do we have the little shadow underneath the paint. If you're an InfraWorks user for a long time, you'll be like, oh, hey, there's no more shadow. Why would there be shadow under paint, right? So there's no more shadow. That's number one. Number two, how do I get this, double yellow line? Or maybe how do I get something different? Maybe I want a dash on one side and a solid line on the other. Well, we now have some options for pavement markings. Load this up. Number one, I can choose any color I want. And number two, I've got a couple of different options for style. A few different dashed styles, a single solid line, a double solid line, and then solid on one side, dashed on the other. All in the idea of just making your model better, of course. Users found workarounds to do all this stuff earlier, but now it's just basically just a piece of cake to change the model. Now, one thing that I found particularly awkward before was to just add a new point of intersection on an InfraWorks road. Now, my computer, my model is thinking, there it comes. Yeah, just take a second for that dashes to come in. There we are. All right, now I have another road over here. It's a very simple road. It's a dead straight line. And what I want to do is I want to add a new point of intersection, you know, somewhere up here in this field. Now you could do this before in InfraWorks, and the way you did it was you right-clicked. You had to select the road first, and then you had to right-click, and then you choose Add Curve. And that put this PI and curve exactly on that straight line, and sometimes it was actually a little difficult to move. Now, what I want to be able to do is right-click somewhere out here and add a new point of intersection or add a new curve in that area, and now we can, right? Once the road is selected, I can right-click anywhere out here if that's where I want the new PI, and choose Add Curve, and it's going to add that curve right there. I'll give it a second to recalculate. Now, I find it interesting. When I'm running the Zoom webinar software, my computer just like grinds to a halt. This would normally have finished like 5 seconds ago. So for whatever reason, Zoom makes all of our computers nice and slow, which is fun.
Yeah, same with me on my computer.
Yeah, I know. It's really quite annoying. Yes.
It is.
So I'll give that a second to recalculate. But that's, you know, that's a productivity enhancement. Being able to add PIs and curves exactly where you want them without having to move them after is obviously very nice. So there's our new PI. And aside from not really going into the weeds when it comes to the bridges, that's pretty much what you get with InfraWorks 2021. So the ability to add your curve off the road someplace, the paint markings, all the bridge stuff, and the interface. That's what's new about InfraWorks. Now, I'm going to share my PowerPoint. There it is. And so Civil 3D next. First and foremost, no format change. Like Prem mentioned, Autodesk seems to be going in the direction of when there's an AutoCAD format change, that's the time when there's a Civil 3D format change, right? So starting with 2018, there have been no AutoCAD format changes and there have been no Civil 3D format changes. So going all the way from 18 to 21, it's all interchangeable, which is great. I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, 2009, let's call it, there were definitely backwards compatibility issues. If you're working on a big project with a bunch of different consultants and you're using different versions of Civil 3D, well, that was terrible. So the format's going to change, but at least we get 4 or 5 years in between now. All right. Number one, InfraWorks bridge to Civil 3D, including styles. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about something called Project Explorer, and then I'll talk about path-based pressure networks. So if you're not using pressure networks because you remember how 2013 was, or you remember how 2017 was, 2017 wasn't all that much better than 2013. And quite frankly, 2020 wasn't all that much better than the rest either. We got some incremental enhancements, but really 2021, this is the release where everybody needs to rethink their use of pressure networks. Maybe it's still not good for you, maybe it is, but this whole new idea of path-based pressure networks, for me at least, I've turned the corner on pressure networks. I will definitely use them in production. So let's talk about bridges first. I need to share my InfraWorks one more time, just briefly, because I need to show you how to get a bridge out of InfraWorks. All right, so there's a bridge here. And by the way, it's not just out of InfraWorks and into Civil 3D, it's out of InfraWorks and into Civil 3D or Revit. So I right-click the bridge and I choose Publish Civil Structure. And I'll create a new one or update an existing one. So create new essentially exports that bridge to a file, right? There's my file location, there's my name. I've already done it, so I don't have to click Create button, but I'm exporting a file. And that file type is an IMX. And there's a JSON image that goes with it as well. Let's close that up. But so these two files, and including the log, go together when I export a bridge. Now, these three files can be used in either Civil 3D or Revit. And again, they're dynamic. So after I bring it into Civil 3D, if the InfraWorks user changes the bridge, they update this file and I reload it, again, sort of like an XREF, into Civil 3D. So let me share Civil 3D. There we go. And bridges. So the way you get the InfraWorks bridge into Civil 3D is by opening an InfraWorks model. Now, this time, I am not going to choose the actual SQLite model itself. I switch the file type to IMX, and I choose the IMX that was exported from InfraWorks as a bridge. That's the only thing I'm going to import. All objects were fine enough, don't need to do anything else. Obviously, I need to set up my coordinate system, which it already has been, and I'll click Open Model. It's not just going to be the bridge that comes in, it's going to be the alignment and profile of that bridge. Now, interestingly, this bridge, this whole road started its life in Civil 3D, right? I have another drawing that has the road alignment in it. I brought that alignment into InfraWorks as a component road because it was a corridor. And then I put the bridge on top of that component road and I'm bringing it back in. And I'm starting a new drawing essentially, but I could bring that bridge back into that other original drawing too. So here's what I get when I bring in that bridge. And I don't need to use all this stuff. If I brought this into the original drawing file, I wouldn't really need the alignment because the alignment already exists, but I could get rid of it. It brings in a little basic sort of design surface as well as the bridge objects themselves. So first thing I'm going to show you is a new entry into the prospector. There's corridors, pipe networks, pressure networks, and now bridges. I brought in one bridge, there it is. And underneath that bridge, we get different object types. There's generic objects like bearings, there's girders, there's piers, and there's the bridge deck and the abutments. Why do we have different object types? Well, because I can go in here and configure layers. Maybe I don't want to show different object types, right? So all these different bridge object types go on certain layers. That's the deck, that's the abutment, that's the girder, etc. So each one of those things goes on a layer, which you can change the color of and which you can freeze. Another right-click option, reload. When the InfraWorks user changes the bridge and then exports a new file, I'll need to reload it. Of course, delete, select, zoom to, your typical Civil 3D stuff. And so that's what it looks like in plan view. These are three-dimensional. They're like AutoCAD solids, essentially. So that's why they look all interesting like that. So they come into plan, and then they can be projected into profile. Right, so what I'll do is I'll create a profile view of my alignment. And there we go. There's a couple of surfaces, but no bridge yet. No problem. So your typical project object to profile view tool is what I use now. So project objects to profile view, just like you would if you're going to project, say, a hydrant into profile view, and I just pick one piece of the bridge. Don't have to pick all the bridge. I can just pick one piece of it, then pick the profile view, and then we end up with some options that you would typically see when you project objects into profile view. So once I click the profile view, here's our options. We can choose different styles for pier, girder, abutment, deck, generic objects. We can choose different label styles as well. I'll leave it as is, and I'll hit OK. And there's our bridge. You can see your pier all the way down to the bottom. You can see our bridge decks, you can see the abutments, you can see everything, and then everything's labeled as well. But not just labeled as, what is it? It's labeled in terms of what the elevation is. So pier 1, top road elevation is 24,845. And again, it's dynamic. So when you reload that bridge, this will update itself. You could then make changes to the main road alignment and corridor and then push that back into InfraWorks, and then that bridge would update, and then you bring it back here and you update the bridge. So it's a circular sort of relationship. So if you're into bridges, there's definitely some cool stuff happening. All right, what time is it? All right, we got lots of time. Project Explorer. There was an announcement that was made recently about Project Explorer. There's a bunch of YouTube videos about Project Explorer. So I'll go through what I think are the highlights of Project Explorer, and then I very much encourage you to have a look at the Autodesk Infrastructure YouTube channel and watch all of the videos on Project Explorer, because it goes into a lot more detail than I can in this short webinar. So what is Project Explorer first and foremost? Well, when you first see it, you're going to think, oh, it's sort of a replacement for the Prospector. And I guess maybe in one respect, maybe it could be. But it's a lot more than that, right? We can still use the Prospector, but the Project Explorer does almost everything that the Prospector can do, and a heck of a lot more. So this drawing is basic. It's a corridor. There's some pipes. There's some blocks that have been inserted. It's your typical thing. And so when it opens up, I'll show you what the Project Explorer does. But before that, Project Explorer isn't part of Civil 3D. Right? When you download and install Civil 3D, you do not have access to the Project Explorer. You must download it from your Autodesk account website. So go to Autodesk account, find Project Explorer, download it, install it. It's another extension, essentially, right? Sort of like the shared reference point or some of the other extensions that come with Civil 3D, like the geospatial extension. Sorry, not the geospatial, but the shoot, Prem, what's the one I'm thinking of?
It's I would just add on to that, this extension, it's I believe it's a paid extension. It's not a free one.
I was getting to that.
Yeah.
So for now, what's the not the geospatial extension, but there's another one that deals with underground stuff like test pits and things.
Geotechnical.
Yeah. So it's like the geotechnical extension. It doesn't come with the software. You have to download and install it. But where those ones are free, well, they come with those who want to install Civil 3D or those who buy Civil 3D. Project Explorer is actually only comes with the AEC collection. I believe you can purchase it outright as well. I'm not positive on that one, but it comes if you subscribe to the AEC collection. If you have that, then you have access to Project Explorer. But if you just subscribe to Civil 3D, you will not have access to the Project Explorer. And like I said, it's possible you may be able to purchase that separately. I'm not sure about the details of that or how much it is. So talk to your SolidCAD rep if you're interested. Okay, let's jump into it. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Project Explorer is the command. It takes a couple seconds to launch, because it has to populate the entire dialog box with all of the sort of Civil 3D objects that exist in the drawing, and not just the objects themselves, but the properties and just some other functionality. So it definitely takes a few seconds to launch. All right, here it is. It's a modeless dialog box, which means I can keep the dialog box open and pan around at the same time. So that's what a modeless dialog box is. Right? Along the top are different object types. Right? There's alignments and profiles, there's corridors, there's assemblies, there's point groups, there's surfaces, so pipes. A lot of the Civil 3D objects are up here in terms of which button you press. So I'm here in the alignments area, and I'm going to click the centerline alignment. And when I do, you see a preview of the profiles, which you can zoom in, you can zoom out right here in the dialog box. And if I'm not sure which alignment this is, I select it here, and if you can look in the plan view of my screen there, I'm holding down the control button, and you can see that the alignment gets thick. Right? When I go to the left and hold the control button, you can see the left alignment getting highlighted. So every time I click the control button, whatever it is that you're selected in the Project Explorer gets highlighted. All right. Also in Project Explorer, I'll click the existing ground surface. And now in the preview, we can clearly see which is the existing ground surface. And there's some elevations and stations that show up here as well. The layout profile, same thing, I'll click that. And it shows me a preview of the layout profile. But more than that, the bottom half of this dialog box is showing me a lot of information about what has been selected in the middle half, right? So we have three halves, 3/3, pardon me. There's the preview third, right? In the middle, there's the object third, and then the bottom, there's the details third. So when I click the centerline alignment, I get information about that alignment, right? Point index, first point, there's the station, easting, northing elevation. When I click, let's say, the layout profile, well, now I'm getting information about the layout profile itself. What can I do with all this stuff? Well, anything you see that has a white background, I can change. All right, so for example, if I click all these alignments, I can change their description together. I can change their styles together. Yeah, sure, you can do some of this stuff with the prospector, but you can't change the description in the prospector without going directly into the properties. So if I double click this, I can change the description right here without actually going to that object's properties. A bunch of right click options. I can set the descriptions for multiple alignments simultaneously. I can set their styles simultaneously, which I can do in the prospector as well, but it's a bit easier here. I can select them, zoom to alignment profile views. I can zoom right to the profile view. Right, so far, you're probably thinking, yeah, okay, that's cool. I can do a lot of the same stuff as I can with the prospector, but a few things that you can't. One thing is the design check set. I can set all those simultaneously here as well. And that's all cool, but really the meat and potatoes of this tool, the most important thing that you can do, arguably, is create reports. And yes, Civil 3D comes with a bunch of reports too. But if there's a report style that you want that doesn't exist, you have to be a programmer, typically, to be able to create a report in Civil 3D. With this software, I can adjust all my headings, right? First column here is point index. Second column is station, easting, northing, elevation, bearing. Well, if I want to report that only shows the point index, the northing and easting, it's very simple with this software. I'm not going to go into details, but I can turn off and on any of these columns. I can reorder any of these columns, because when I go ahead and create the report, it's just going to dump out all the information that's shown in these columns. And that's done in the layout button right here. There's preferences as well. I can change, how many decimal places, that kind of thing. So let me just show you. I'm going to right click. I have a couple of options. I can go a report to a file like a PDF. I can go to an AutoCAD table, or I can go to a whole new two-dimensional AutoCAD drawing. I'm going to go to a table. All right, there's some options. I can edit the table style, just like an AutoCAD table. It actually comes out as an AutoCAD table. I can edit that style. I can use the Project Explorer settings to edit that style, or I can use an AutoCAD table style. And all of this stuff can be exported for later use as well. So if you create a layout in the Project Explorer and you create a table style in the Project Explorer, you can export that to a file so that you can use it later, or so that other users in your company can use it. All right. Come on. Pretty sure I clicked a point there. It's not coming in right now.
Just to add on to what Matt was saying, we have a number of clients, especially, working with, for example, Ministry of Transportation or government agencies, requiring the alignment reports or profiles or design details in a specific format, exporting that to a standard format, for those agencies was a bit of challenge in the past, and now we could do most of those custom reporting using this tool, which is a great advantage.
Thanks. What I'm doing is I'm going straight to my PowerPoint for a second, because my Civil 3D is not happy right now for some reason. And so I'll just talk about the Project Explorer a little bit, and then I'll move on to the pipe stuff. All right. Let me just start another instance of Civil. There we go. So Project Explorer is responsible for reports like I talked about, object preview I talked about, applying styles, editing objects. I mean, you're not going to edit the geometry of your alignment, but you can get to the geometry editor. But these last three are, I think, what a lot of my customers are going to be excited about. You have 200 pipes and you want to make them all, they're all 100, and you want to make them all 150. Well, you know as well as I do that in the past, you had to go to each and every one, and right click and choose swap part. And you have to do that 150 times, or however many pipes you have. Using the Project Explorer, I can use the swap parts on all pipes, on all structures. So it will make mincemeat out of that old sort of antiquated swapping 150 pipes thing that we used to have to do. So if doesn't matter how many pipes you have in the drawing, we can swap them all, and the structures as well. And then edit pipe run slope. If you have, let's say, 27 pipes all in a row, and they are currently using various slopes, you can say, I want to start here at the beginning, I want to end at the end, I want them all to be exactly 1%. So you can do that as well. In the past, sort of like swapping, you had to go in and edit each and every single pipe and change the slope individually. Now I can change the slope of something called a pipe run. All right, so my table was inserted, and here's what it looks like before I move on to pressure networks. So yes, there's a ton of information here, but there doesn't have to be. All I had to do really was edit the layout of the Project Explorer, and however it looks in Project Explorer, it's going to look like here. All right. Last, but certainly not least, and I left it for last because I think it's the coolest one. Pressure networks have been improved is not a strong enough word, really. Overhauled. I mean, it's still the same stuff. It's still fittings, appurtenances, and pipes, but we now have something called a pipe run. So you choose where you want the pipes to begin, and you just start clicking like you always did. And maybe at first it's not going to look any different to you. But after you create the pipe run is where the differences happen.
Hey,
Sorry,
Matt,
Matt,
will
if
you
I can
share?
interject. Oh,
Yeah, I'm going to share. The drawing hasn't quite opened yet, and so
Oh, it's
I
okay.
will. Yeah, I'll create a new share as well. There it comes. Pipes.
looks good. We can see your Civil 3D now.
Okay, good. It's actually interesting. You know, this is the first time I've used the Zoom webinar tool. And usually when I use Zoom, I can share my entire screen and I can flip back and forth between the apps and it doesn't matter. But with the Zoom webinar tool, I have to share each individual app. And it's kind of a pain in the
That's
butt.
what got me at the first time too. I
Yep.
was thinking like, sharing.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway.
It's quite annoying.
Yep.
All right. So a little bit of time left. And what I'll show you is sort of the highlights of what a pipe run allows us to do. So number one, it's not going to look any different right away. Only when you start making edits is it really going to sort of shine. So one edit that you would typically want to make is, well, I want to change the location of a bend, or I want to change the location of the end of my pipe, for example. So here's a pipe run. I have 100 millimeter pipes. I've got a bunch of bends. Right now they're all 90 degrees. And so if I take
Sorry,
the
Matt.
pipe run, yeah.
I think we're still looking at your home screen of Civil 3D 2021.
Really? That's
Yes.
weird. Oh man, that's so annoying. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. There we go. Looks good now.
All right. Keep your eyes on this label right here, 100-90, right? That's a 90-degree bend. I'm going to take this guy and move him over here, roughly where 45 degrees would be. And you'll notice that the label changed, 100-45. So any change you make to the pipe run, Civil 3D will automatically choose the closest bend. Now, is this perfectly 45? Totally not. But what the software does is it sort of splits the angle, right? It's because I didn't choose exactly 45. It rotates that bend halfway between the angle mismatch. If it was exactly 45, then we'd be perfect. But as you can see, the bend is 45, but the angle that I chose was a little bit different. And so there's just the same amount of error on both sides. So number one, that's great. You know, you make all the edits you want, and the bends will just update themselves. So I'm going to undo that, keep it straight. Another thing that is very cool is the ability to work with profiles. Now, we could work with profiles before, but when we used to create a pressure network first, you would specify the cover, for example, 1 meter cover or 2 meters cover. And if you wanted to change that, there were ways to do it before. But the way to change the amount of cover now is very much easier. So I'm going to choose a pipe run profile. And I can choose the offset style, cut length, right? So if you have a 5 meter cut length, that's where essentially where the vertical PIs are going to be set. Or you can choose offsets at fitting. So if there's a long pipe, I don't want to break the pipe there. I only want to break the pipe at the fittings. I can choose. I'm going to choose cut length. I can choose a profile. I can choose a different surface and a different profile should I want. Right now, I'm going to choose my offset of 2. And pretty quickly, the offset is changed to 2. It's a dynamic relationship. So if my surface changes, that offset will automatically happen. Right, I'll switch it back to 1. Now that's the ground profile. What about a design profile? Same thing. Any profile you happen to have, it'll maintain the dynamic relationship. So let me create a really quick profile for us. I'll name it CL. Not going to be anything special, just a really basic profile. There it is. I'll choose the pipe run. I'll choose the pipe run profile tool, and I'll change the associated profile. And maybe I'll change the depth. Instead of 1.0, I'll make it 1.2. Any change I make to that design profile, the pipe run will update itself. There it is. Any new point of intersection I add, the point of intersection will be added to the profile as the pipe run as well. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is snaking your pipe underneath another pipe. So if there's a crossing pipe here, maybe I want to add a couple of PIs and snake my pressure main underneath that or over it, depending on your situation. We could do this in previous versions, but it was sort of awkward. So what I do is I'll pick the pipe run, and there's some new buttons in the ribbon. Add and remove PIs, points of vertical intersection. So I'll add one here. Make sure my O-snap is not on. There's one. There's another one. Oh shoot, I should have added one here. There we go. And finally, how easy was that? Again, we could sort of do that before, but it's definitely much easier now. And then those are actual bends that get placed in plan view. Right? Every PI I have, there's now a bend in profile that's rotated vertically, and I see that it's chosen the 45-degree bend as well. I could very easily just remove those a bit later if I choose not to snake around that. Now, the last thing I'll show you before we finish, what happens if I change my depth now, right? It was 1.2 meters before. Well, the minute you start adding points of intersection, we have something called an override, right? Essentially, any change I make to the vertical offset is no longer going to work because I have chosen to add PIs, but I don't need the override to go the entire way. Let me explain. I can change the location of the override for the start and the end, right? Now, anything outside of that blue shaded area will, in fact, accept the new change to depth. Right now it's 1.2. I'll set that to 1.5. The places where I added the PIs will stay, as you saw, but the endpoints now have changed to 1.5. So the best of both worlds. You can get your pipe run to be at some dynamic depth below your profile, but then when you add your vertical PIs, you want them to stay where they are. You can have the rest of the pipe run still be dynamically linked to that profile, but your custom PIs are overriding that. And so like I said earlier, if you haven't been using pipe networks for various reasons up until now, 2021 really is time to rethink them. Go back, try them out, and see if they meet your needs now, because they met mine, right? Before 2021, I'm like, nah, I don't know, pipe networks are okay, the pressure networks, but now I would totally use them. And so that is pretty much it for what's new for Civil 3D, InfraWorks, and AutoCAD. Any questions in the queue there, guys?
Nothing as of yet.
No questions.
Looks good. Answered them all.
Okay. All right. What I'll do is I will share my PowerPoint again because I got a couple of emails at the end in case you are interested. So that's me on top there, Matt Kolberg, and then Prem Joseph below that. So if you have any other questions, feel free to send emails. We've got the Infrastructure University coming up. I wonder if you've seen marketing about that. This is this was recorded, and this will be sort of played at the Infrastructure University for SolidCAD. And so if you want to see this again, it's going to be played during that as well. Prem, anything you have to add?
No, yeah, thank you, Matt, and thank you, everyone. As Matt mentioned, please stay tuned for more details on the infrastructure or university coming out. I think it's October 7th, the date, if I'm correct. So we are going to present these topics in a little more detailed way. For example, Project Explorer or the pipes design, you may get a chance to see it more, bit more detailed environment in that sessions. And plus, as mentioned, as Matt mentioned, the pressure pipe network is now really ready for the production. We heavily encourage all our clients to take advantage of that, and especially with the new path-based pipe runs. The pipe runs are really handy. Every time you make a pipe run, it is actually doing an alignment behind the scene also to get us more controls. So that's how it's managed some of the relationship to there's an alignment going behind the scene. You might notice that in your prospector tab. So there are a lot of good things in the 2021 Civil 3D. Please take advantage of it, and always feel free to contact us if you have any questions, and we are more than happy to help you. And also we have Colin in this from our team. He is also available for any questions or email to answer. Thank you.
Just before we go, Rolf asked a question. And so Ralph says, can you share a link to download Project Explorer who have the AEC collection? You just go to manage.autodesk.com. Wherever you download Civil 3D on your Autodesk account, that's where it's going to be. You'll find the Project Explorer right underneath Civil 3D. And so I'm trying to share my my Google Chrome, but it's dreadfully slow. So I may not be able to show you where it is, but that's where it is. Go to manage.autodesk.com and you'll see it there. Prem, do you see my internet browser?
No.
Really? Okay, forget it. Anyways, that's where it is. And then if you're interested in the Project Explorer, go to the YouTube channel for Autodesk Infrastructure. There's like 5 different videos on Project Explorer, so I highly recommend you going to check that out. So on behalf of oh yes, something else?
And also just one more thing there, since that question on how to download that piece of extension, your account manager or your coordinator from your company should add this extension to the users, okay? Then only it's going to be available to download it, or in your account, in the user's account to be installed. So that's a process similar to that we did. If you are aware of the InfraWorks or other product from Autodesk, the modules, additional modules of the InfraWorks, we had to include to the users the same process. Okay, just need to add that extension specific to the CAD user for those assigned members can download the extensions. Just want to highlight that. Okay.
Perfect. Thanks, Prem.
Yep.
All right. So on behalf of Prem and Colin and the rest of SolidCAD, my name is Matt Kolberg, and I thank you for attending, and you have yourself a good rest of your week. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.